$3 million. That is what a jury awarded Sarah Jo Fenley, the owner of Big City Coffee, for damages related to Boise State University pushing her business off the campus for supporting law enforcement. This is a huge win for free speech and those standing up to the woke mob. However, taxpayers are set to be on the hook for the $3 million in damages if the legislature doesn't take action. Rather than punish taxpayers for Boise State's disregard for Ms. Fenley's First Amendment rights, the legislature should act by not only taking it out of the university's budget, but defunding the entire DEI system. On this week's episode of Fiscal Fridays, we will give you a rundown of the Big City Coffee case, what it means in the larger context of DEI in colleges and universities, and what lawmakers should do about it in 2025. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Big City Coffee case, here's a synopsis. In 2021, Sarah Fenley filed a $10 million lawsuit against Boise State University and several of its administrators for forcing her coffee shop off the campus, a breach of her contract with BSU. What was the offense, you ask? In short, it turns out Ms. Fenley expressed opinions that the university disapproved of. Above her newly opened coffee shop at the campus library, Ms. Fenley flew thin blue-lined flags in support of Idaho's law enforcement. She's married to a former Boise police officer who was shot 5 times in the line of duty. He was paralyzed from his injuries. After years of litigation, the Big City Coffee case finally came to a resolution last week. The jury ruled unanimously that Ms. Fenley be awarded $3 million in damages. Boise State and its diversity bureaucrats were wrong to force her to close her business. Doubtless, this was a win for freedom of speech and the Fenley family. As a win against the woke mob, IFF President Ron Nate said it best: this should be a warning to other institutions. Beyond the cost of the case, DEI is quite costly to Idaho's taxpayers. Idaho has been funding the woke mob through her higher education institutions for some time now, and it's not just through BSU. This year, IFF published a report detailing how as many as 75 staffers and $6 million in salaries and benefits are dedicated to supporting DEI every year. Boise State is the most egregious example, but you can find DEI bureaucrats at the University of Idaho and Idaho State University too. The legislature setting the higher education budget each year would argue they address DEI spending, but the institutions chose to thumb their nose rather than comply. In 2021, the legislature cut $2.5 million as a social justice reduction to the college budget. But this had virtually no impact, as the legislature reinstated the funds the following year. All the while, the University of Idaho, for example, hired a new Associate Dean of Inclusion, adopted diversity statements, imposed a bias reporting system, and established a Black Cultural Center. Lawmakers handcuffed themselves to intent language in the budget that says funds cannot be spent on DEI, only for universities to come back and say that their DEI initiatives were privately funded. So what is the policy prescription for this woke ideology that permeates Idaho's higher education system? It's simple. Stop playing around with intent language, pass a law to ban DEI, and squeeze the institutions into compliance with that law. Robust legislation is required to not only ban these pervasive and discriminatory practices at Idaho's colleges and universities. We see examples in other states where, despite the best efforts of the policymakers, universities responded with bans by rebranding their DEI offices and shuffling the staff into new roles with the same old objectives. This is even the case in Florida, where academic outcry from the DEI ban was merely a publicity stunt to finally get policymakers off their backs. Idaho should go a step further by defunding universities into compliance. Money is fungible. If the state covers all the basic needs of the institutions, that leaves donations to be free money to support woke ideology. Defunding forces them to prioritize. And BSU should not be off the hook on the Big City Coffee case either. The $3 million they lost for violating Ms. Fenley's rights should come right from their own pocketbook, not the taxpayers. To wrap up, the big city coffee case should never have happened in the first place. Idaho's colleges forgot their purpose and ignored legislative efforts for a course correction. Again, Ron was right. This should be a warning to institutions. It should be a wake-up call for them to stop indoctrinating and start educating. After all, isn't that what we thought we were paying them to do? If you enjoyed today's episode of Fiscal Fridays, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. If you would like to read our companion article series on DEI and higher education, please visit idahofreedom.org.